Hello, how are you? So today is the 17th of December 2024 and it's currently 35 degrees right now outside in Sydney. So I have a headache and I think I might have a fever, I'm not sure. So I'm pretty debilitated today. I can't really do much, and usually I would just move on and struggle on, but I'm trying to implement this philosophy of not trying too hard because I feel like I can't leave my hustle mode on even when I'm sick in the past or even when I am not feeling well. I feel like the world doesn't care if you're sick. You just still need to make money. You still need to grind and keep going because the world doesn't care, because the bills still need to be paid. But I feel like my resolution in that regards have declined so much, especially this month. Especially with that news of the United Healthcare CEO being by that guy in the backpack. If you don't know, just go on TikTok. It's probably all over the place. And also because of, I think like the beginning of the month, we started off with the Korean military law, like martial law being enacted and then being shut down within a few hours of that. I feel like the world has started to change itself, has started to rearrange itself. I feel like a lot of pieces on earth is moving, and now I'm watching a lot of like drone stories are like on TikTok, so many of them now in the US. And and it's not only drones, because the drones are targeting the UFOs and all these things. And I feel like we're on the 17th. We still have like 2 solid weeks of this month left, and I feel like I'm so done. I don't want to know what I need to do anymore. I don't want to hustle. I don't want to do anything, to be honest. I just want to witness how this whole world and how this civilization is gonna crumble down. And well, it's not worth it to keep going, to keep hustling in the old system, because the system is probably gonna crumble soon anyway. It probably won't exist soon. So why do I work hard to in that system that is probably not gonna be there soon? And it's so weird because it feels like it's so different than last year. I feel like last year I was frustrated, but I felt like it was my fault that things weren't working out, that I haven't figured out the secret ingredients, or haven't figured out the secret method to cracking, the universal secret of how to be prosperous, or how to take care of yourself, or how to be healthy, all of that thing. But I feel like this year, especially after a lot of, well, especially this month, I feel like, especially with the, of the United Healthcare CEO, I felt like, I'm not saying it's happening in Sydney, Australia, because I'm here, and that's happening across the pond in the US, but I feel like there is a awakening of the class consciousness that is not there before. Like now I feel like there's something that is being brought to their, like, in front of them, while before it was like it was all felt, but it wasn't like visually felt. It wasn't visually in front of them. It wasn't as if that they just like, oh, I get it now. It's not our fault that we are where we are now. Like there is a clear division between the billionaire class and the rest of us, and I feel the revolution is starting. And I feel like everyone that is having difficulty like there will be a lot of crimes. I feel like it's gonna be a lot of vigilantes happening. It's like in New York especially, it's like what happened in the 1980s. I mean, like, I might be telling the stories a bit wrong, but I feel like, wasn't there a story about how it used to be so crime ridden? Like, yeah, it was so basically filled with a lot of crime, and the cops weren't doing anything, and then suddenly a guy basically just popped a robber and on the train or something, and then the jury basically said that he's not guilty. And ever since then, like, the crime has gone down, because now, the criminals understood, like, there is a lot of risk now. Like, they can't just do whatever they want. Like, they can get murdered, and the murderer will not suffer the consequences of their action for correcting criminals being criminals. And I feel like there is a kind of ironic theme for it. Like, if it happens there, it happens in New York, and this time it happens in New York again. And maybe it's trying to remind them of that time. And now, like, TikTok is going to be banned in the US, and maybe they are afraid of, the working class trying to gather themselves as one, so that they can create a movement that is very united, so they can move as one against the limited number of people who are basically controlling 99% of the economy in that country, and also might be worldwide. And I feel like once you start to control the media, that's when things start becoming very dangerous. And at the same time, I feel like annoyed, because why do things just keep repeating itself? So maybe if I just hang on a little bit longer, well, either I perish or something will happen and things just would reset again. And maybe in the reset, things will be a lot fairer to everyone, and not just tilting its weight onto just this one small population of people who are probably not worthy being there. And I know worthy is such a heavy loaded word. It's like, who are people that are worthy of being that positions? And I don't think there is anyone. I guess I'm just being very sick, and kind of just have this thought in my head, and might be when I'm no longer have this headache, I might be a little bit nicer. Also, I have this experience yesterday. I went to a department store, and I was just like wandering around. I haven't gone to a department store in a long time. I avoid usually going in there. I usually just go to individual store like Uniqlo or H&M, or just individual stores, so I don't go into Myers or David Jones anymore. So, but yesterday I went to Myers. I went up all those levels, and I've seen that they're not updated. It feels weird that Myers still look the same like they were in the 2000s. In the 2000s, they felt very, very chic and very new in a lot of ways. But now it just feels very old. So I went to the other side to David Jones. I do this every now and then, but not often. So I just wander around, and when I was on the perfume and luxury good level, I saw like a group of security. I escorted a group of teenage boys out, and they look like ashes. If you don't know what ashes are, you can just Google it. But my immediate thought was, because now I'm poor, right? I'm poor. I'm thinking, did they do something wrong, or did they just get ushered out because they don't look the part, right? I felt like in the past I probably would have taken the side of the security guards, but this time I felt like, because I'm poor, I've taken the side of the teenagers. I felt like, oh, did they do something wrong, or is that just discrimination against the poor? Like, don't get me wrong, I'm scared of teenagers just in general, regardless whether they're boys or girls. It's just like teenagers are just scary. I was scared when I was a teenager. I'm scared now as a 40 years old. So I'm scared regardless. But as I was just wondering, I'm like, because in David Jones, the luxury goods like the Balenciaga, the Louis V, and all the LV and Chloe and all, I don't know what the brands are anymore. Mulberry, all that stuff are basically displayed in an open plan. So they are open, so they're not like individual. They are individual store, but you can access it like within the department store itself. So you just walk around, you go in and out in the section. And I did that, and the first time I did was went to Balenciaga because it was the closest to the door. And I'm like, I'm not going outside, it's probably still hot, so I'm like, I'm just gonna travel here. And then I saw a bag that was really similar to my $5 a Taobao bag that I was showing you to about. So I just realized, like, oh my god, my $5 Taobao bag from China is actually a dupe of this rodeo bag that I basically found out is called the rodeo bag on TikTok, from Balenciaga. And I'm like, oh my god, this is so cute. Like, in my head I was like, this is so cute. And they come like in different colors. They come in 10 colors, and I am so used to just being able to touch and basically play with displays items. So I did, and then this Asian boy basically came to me straight away in a panic mode, almost, and with anxiety. And I was just like clunkering with the with the lock, and this boy won't go away. And I felt really uncomfortable, and I'm like, oh, I just like played around with it. I'm like, and he goes, oh, do you want me to show you how it works? And I'm like, no, I just want to play with it. Well, I didn't say I want to play with it. I'm just like, oh, I just want to turn these things around, and it's just so cute. And I love the color because it was cream. But I didn't say that out loud. I was just like, you're playing. No, it's just cute. And then he goes, I don't know, I think he was just trying to explain it to me. Yeah, it has 2 locks and stuff. And I'm like, I know, I've got one at home, my $5 Taobao bag, but I'm not saying that I've got one and Balenciaga. I'm just saying, like, I've got one that have similar features to this in my head. I'm like thinking, but I got really annoyed. And then it wasn't until I walked around to the Hermes area, where so Hermes perfume area. So if you go to the city David Jones area, like the perfume at the bottom level, not on the upper level. They usually have like Clinique, Elizabeth Arden, all that stuff, and then you can just go around and like try their perfumes and stuff. And then I was like, okay, I just look around and I just spray stuff, and I look at this bit, like, and I was like approaching it, and then this girl, this, I don't know, 20-year-old girl, blonde and stuff, also did the same thing with the same as the Asian boy. She just like rushed to my side and looked a bit panicked a bit, and then I was just like, oh, and she just stuck to me, and then she just like, and I'm like, is this hair for oil? I'm like, I'm okay, and I'm like, I think I was just a bit flabbergasted. I wasn't like processing the idea. I'm just browsing. I'm basically just said that I'm browsing. I'm just browsing. And they just like, but they didn't leave me, and they just stuck to me. And I'm just like, okay, I just sprayed this, and then this, like, this oil for hair and hand. Basically, it says for hair and hand. So I tried on, and it felt okay, and I'm just like walking really slowly away from them. And then as soon as I left, like, she basically just like, fix the position of the hair and oil. And I realized what just happened. I'm like, these people are so afraid that I'm gonna steal, probably. They looked at me like, because I was looking really scruffy yesterday, and I think they just thought that I would steal. I was like, oh my god, I've just been discriminated for being poor, for looking poor as well. And I don't know if I feel like I want to blame them or anything, or because like they're still children. If you look at them, they just look like they so young, like they're probably not over 25, and I feel like, wow, that didn't feel good at all. And yeah, I was wearing my, I don't know, my $8 Kmart and my $20 Kmart bag and my $25 Uniqlo shorts. So I was being really cheap, of course, as usual. But I'm like, but the hurt didn't go and pierce my heart. I feel like it touched on my whole auric field, like my whole energy field in my body. I feel like it's being touched like that, and then the energy field is like vibrating a little bit, like kind of like, when you poke like a bag of water, like there is a plastic bag of water, and then you just poke at it, and it just kind of like give you that ripples a little bit. It feels a little bit like that. And I felt like, oh. And then I walked around to the other side, and I was like going to Mulberry, and this lady was so just being nice. I always felt a bit guilty for this one, and she just looked at me and she said hello, and I just snapped at her and say, I'm just browsing, because I think this is what happens a lot to a lot of people. So I'm not sure what has happened in the retail space for the past 20 years or so. I used to work for David Jones for like 8 months or something, but not in the city one, Bondi Junction. So I felt like the culture has shifted so much, and I don't know whether it's the retail is like, I remember like a friend, or well, an older friend was telling me when I was younger, when I was like 20 something, like really young, like, oh, I get really intimidated when I go into those luxury stores. And she told me basically, remember, the girl on the other side, the sales assistant on the other side, is also still being paid minimum wage. I remember that particular that particular saying from a long time ago. I guess like, but I didn't know what it meant. Like back then, I think it kind of served the purpose. It's like served the purpose of saying like, you shouldn't feel intimidated, or you shouldn't feel small about yourself just because someone else is treating you badly, because that someone else is probably not any different than you. That probably the message back then, and I received it as it was. But now I feel like it also has a different layers. It's like, oh, these people think that just by associating with this brand that they are different, that they are no longer workers, is delusional. And I totally get it. Like, when you were young, you definitely are like a part of that psyche. Like, I used to work in, for example, I used to work with people who work with supermodels. I used to work with people who deals with multimillionaires. I used to deal with people with, that is one of the top 10 accounting firm in the world. Like when you are Asian, especially, it's like in Korea, for example, they probably were educated to work in Samsung, for example, in one of Chaebol's conglomerates company, LG, or whatever company it is, like, or when maybe if you're from the US. you know, you if like now, even now, like if you're in tech, like you know, in maybe in the 2010s ish, like you know, if you work for FANG's company, you know, Facebook, I don't know what is the A for, Netflix, Google, Apple, A for Apple. You know, it feels like you know you elevated, but that those the tax one are different because the tax one probably pay you more money, you know, and also stock options. So like that particular association is probably correct because you know once you get in, you probably elevated your social economic status to some degree, and if you joined in very early on, you probably is a millionaire now. So there's some truth to that in that area, but on those other ones, the ones where you don't particularly have control or over your own income, and you are basically still a worker to them. In the olden days, you know, you're probably a slave, still a slave, you know, if you're working for a government, or you're working for the palace, or you're working for a noble family. A slave is still a slave. It doesn't matter which slave, you know, unless you are part of the upper class. You're not just because you're working for them doesn't mean you are part of that. And it's funny because like I think I wasn't really digging into this particular issue that much until yesterday when I was watching Korean drama. Korean dramas always got me into this really deep thinking and getting me into action. Be careful once you get into the rabbit hole of Korean drama because it pokes into your subconscious. um I was watching this lady, noble lady Ock. Noble Lady Ock, that's the title, I think. This is, so we're only on episode 4, so it's still ongoing and stuff, but the basic story is this girl who used to be a slave by ways of a lot of incidents happening to her ended up being a noble lady, or assuming the identity of a noble lady, and or in Korean it's a Yangbang. And in this particular area to which she was living in now, my favorites I think is washing. I get headache especially when the weather hits 30, over 30 something, like over 35. My headache just hits, even if the temperature inside is cool. My body just knows like outside is hot, and then it's just reacting accordingly. It's like my body is quite in tune with the earth, that the surrounding current geographical earth. Anyway, I'm just saying my headache is here. And the current family that basically letting her assume this identity of being a noble lady is living in the area where their family law is, you know, the household law is greater than the governmental law. So basically whatever the master says to the slave, however the master is treating the slave, is whatever goes, rather than whatever the current legislation or whatever the current law of the local area is. So that's the area which she lived in. Before she got to this particular position or this identity, she was a slave, and then the slave, and she like the drama was showing how bad she was treated, and she basically got a name maggot because the master wants her to live as a maggot. And that shows the cruelty, and it was not for the tame-hearted. It's not for someone who is have a weak heart. And even I am having difficulty watching it now because I feel like I have gone really soft in the past 10 years or so. When I was in my 20s, I feel like my heart was a heart of steel. Like if I watch this, I'm like, oh, this is boring. Like everyone's life is hard. Like why would you do this? Like just to gain some tears. But now I'm like, oh my god, I can't watch this. This is too much. So it just shows you the cruelty of it. How people, if you're a slave, like it's just based on your social economic state. If you're a slave, you're not a person. You are a lot less than a pig, because at least livestock has more value than you. And you're basically being treated like a vermin, and you see the abuse that being received and being applied by the upper classes, and the upper classes was basically saying things like, oh, this is why you shouldn't be good to this slave, this to lower class people, they're just gonna go and attack you and stuff like that. And it hits me like, oh, this is resonating a lot right now with what is going on in the world with this, because like now the wealth gap has encroached onto the Western world, right? Well, it's always been there, because usually it's out of our Western people's life, like the people who live in the Western world. Usually it is out of sight, and so it's out of mind. But now it's happening within the Western world, so it's no longer out of sight and out of mind. It is now becoming a worldwide problem, but it always has been a worldwide problem. It's never not been a worldwide problem. It's just now it's happening in the US, UK, Canada, Australia. So now it's a Western problem. Like it's now you have to be aware of it because it's domestic now. But I feel like it was very apt the way it was said, like this drama, because it's being set in the period, like in the historical period drama context. It can say a lot of things that I think it's harder to say if the set is being situated in a modern drama, like in a corporate scene, for example. So they can have that excuse of this is a fiction, and it happens like a long time ago, where people do that, where people say that out loud, where people are not ashamed because they feel really entitled, like this is their entitlement, this is how they are behaving, because they fully believe that this is their God-given right to treat people like this, to treat slaves, women, children, people of different belief system. And now, because like I'm having a feeling of like, oh, do I really want to be rich anymore now? Like, is that an aspiration for me to be now? Like, suddenly I'm starting to question my aspiration being rich. I feel like I'm not feeling guilty by any means. Like, I still want all my basic needs met, like my housings, my food, my health, my all this, my legal rights. I still want all these basic things to be met. So I, even if it's not being funded by the government, for example, then I would like to have the skills and also the capacity to generate my own income to cover all those basic things. I'm burning out. So I'm having this existential crisis, but not in terms of like the inside, but now it's more on the outside. It's before it was like, why is not my life is not working out, and then now, like December especially, it's being presented to me as if like it's not really your fault, the system is definitely rigged. It's as if that there is proof, because now it's like everyone is talking about it, right? Everyone's like, even if it's for in the context of American societies, from the healthcare of the the ordinary American apathy towards the death of this healthcare, this billion-dollar company leader, basically. And it's as if that, and I think like the way I was treated yesterday by this staff at David Jones, I feel like these people don't know that they're like, I'm not saying they're slave, but I'm just saying like they are not these companies. Like these companies is not, it's just an employer. Like you are poor. If you're working at David, they're probably not poor. Maybe they have like rich parents or something so they can work there. But if you're not, if you work there for, I mean, like a job is a job. It's definitely, I'm not blaming this on them, by the way. They're still young, so they probably have a lot of things that they need to be exposed to themselves. But, because when I was younger, when I was at that age, I also, defend like the companies and stuff. It's not only until you get older when you're being chewed out that after you're being used and no longer useful, and then you realize like, oh yeah, why did I do that again? Because I snuffed this older gentleman when I bumped onto this random stranger, older, probably like 60-year-old or something, on the elevator when I was working until 7 p.m. when I was still doing my corporate work. And then the guy just looked at me and just shake his head, and he basically said, don't work too hard. And I think he just pities me for working too hard. And I was like, back then, still in my 20s, thinking, of course I should work hard. That's how you get ahead. Like, oh, he's just bitter. He's just old and bitter. And he doesn't know what he's talking about. Like, this company has been kind to me and has been giving me a lot of things that, things that haven't been given to me before. And you start to think that, they're not using you, but they are. They're not exploiting you. They are. And I think so. I don't feel necessarily angry or resentful towards the staff yesterday. They're just doing their job, and they probably are a bit attached to the fact that they're working for Balenciaga, for David Jones, or for MS. So definitely, like, they haven't seen the other end of it. Like, I've seen this lady, for example, who have worked for luxury goods or luxury brand for 18 years, and then they just let go within 1 week, and their severance pay was even cut in half. So they're basically, she was basically let go without having any money in her account, or in, like, without any much notice either. And recently I just heard about another news from an acquaintance about how she was let go from her job. And a lot of tech people are also being let go from their jobs. Like the boom hiring in 2020 is being followed by the boom firing in 2024 now. That's my understanding of it. And I'm like, now as a 40-year-old, I get it. Like, this, like, you should not worship the oligarch, or you should not worship this class of people that basically getting rich based on your life, basically based on extorting every life energy that you have, all the energy that you should have been put into yourself, and all of these things. And I know I might be sounding like a bitter old lady. I might be. But I don't think so. I think, like, I feel my understanding of it now has come full circle, rather than I only have like half of the understanding when I was younger, but now I see it how it comes full circle. Because, like, if you're being let go, especially after 18 years of service, let's say you started at 18 and then now you're being let go at 36, you are too old now to get back into it. They're not gonna hire you just because you're gonna be too old and too expensive, especially in Australia where you are being hired based on your years of experience. The only reason they will hire a junior is because they don't have experience and therefore you can pay them lower. And once you're over 35, you'll be overqualified for a lot of things, and they will not hire you just because you offer them cheap salary, for example. Even if you get a salary cut, because if you started a job and that you're overqualified for, I think you will make other people feel uncomfortable because they don't know how to treat you. They have to treat you with respect, especially if it's a junior position and you're not a junior. So it's just going to create a lot of awkwardness. And to be honest, I don't think companies would like that. And being ageist. I don't know how to pronounce it. Ageist. Being discriminated because of your age is a thing. Because I don't know how to pronounce ageism. I have to declare all the other words. My head hurts so much. It's boiling. The temperature inside this place is probably about 25, 26. So it's not hot. It's not 35. It's just how my body is recognizing that it's hot outside. My body is like having this relationship with the ground, probably with earth, like with the dirt. It's like the dirt is detecting that the sun is really hot. So my body is like that. It's like, yes, it is really hot outside. It's like a sensor, like is a wireless sensor about what is the level of heat outside. Sorry, it's distracting because I'm feeling uncomfortable. And what was I talking about? Oh yeah, so you have to be really strategical. You have to know, I think, when you were younger that you are not part of this company. This company, like, even if they lie to you, they're saying you are a family, we take care of you, you should be proud to be associated with this company and stuff. I think that's what I was missing when this older gentleman was telling me not to work too hard in the lift there, because at that time I felt obligated to work as hard as possible because this company is giving me, a chance, an opportunity. But I think what I didn't get back then is basically saying you should just do the work as they pay you, as your pay level. You shouldn't do much more than that. And right now I'm also witnessing a cycle of that. All the younger people are basically saying, I don't know, I'm basically doing what I was doing back then. They're associating the identity as someone who works at this company, like in this case, someone who works for, like in my case, like someone who works at the prestige top, blah, blah, blah. They weren't paying me a lot of money, and in the industry, they were basically known as underpaying a lot of their workers. And I think, and I'm not blaming this particular company at all because it's just the way the model works. Like back then anyway, I don't know now because I haven't worked in corporate for a long time, and I might go back to corporate, but I think like I might not approach it the same way I used to be. I would not work so hard at it. I would be just like, no, it's 5 o'clock, I should go. Suddenly I understand all the secretaries or the personal assistants and the executive assistants back then. Like I used to kind of like judge them so hard, like when they go home at 5 o'clock on the dot, like, and always come at 8:30 on the dot. Like I judge them so hard, and now I fully understand them. I'm like, yeah, that's how you should do it. You always have to pay attention to the older ladies and how they do it. They know what they're doing. Like in that particular context, not in outside. Like after spending 8 years with the older ladies on the outside, I'm like, oh no, these people are horrible. I learned how to manipulate people or how not to be manipulated. Like they definitely know how to do that. That's a different thing altogether. But yeah, it's like, yeah, when I was younger, I definitely like associate myself with like, oh yeah, I'm working for this and this. Like if you're in accounting world, for example, like some people probably think, oh, I work for EY, I work for KPMG. It's as if like it's a badge, like it's a prestige thing. But I think people forget, like, a slave is still a slave. You're still, your status is not that of the owner. It's not an ownership of stuff. Even when you have a public company, for example, you suddenly are responsible for the shareholders. There are people that you have to keep reporting to because you're not the owner. You have to keep reporting to the owner. And as a worker, you will never be the owner. And I think like that's probably what's different with like the FANG or the tech company structures. Is like, you can also be part of the owner, and so that the company, when the company gains profit, as a worker you also gains profit with your stock options and stuff like that. So maybe that's a little bit different structure, like compensation model. But I don't know really how to talk to the younger generation now to my wisdom. I think I deserve this wisdom. Let's call it wisdom. I'm like, I think maybe something that you have to go through, because I was being told quite directly by this older gentleman, and I rebuked it, dismissed it. So now when other, because like I was talking to another person, and then this person is young, and then they basically just started work in a wealth management company, and I was talking to them about the of the United Healthcare CEO, and I was talking about how the American society is basically quite apathetical about the situation. And this person, because I think they are working for a wealth management company, they are basically handling transactions quite big and stuff. um, I feel like there's like, and they're still young, just the start of their career, so I think it makes them believe, and it's also like just starting like this like it's still a new job, basically. So I think they're still heavily infatuated with the fact that they're part of this, oligarch system, and handling this oligarchs money and stuff. Because like as soon as I was like sharing that story, and I wasn't taking sides in this particular storytelling, I was just mentioning it because it was part of the story at that time. Like on TikTok, it was quite heavy, so you just kind of just having small talks about the world's affair, current affair, basically. And they're basically saying to me, oh, but the CEO, it's not, it's the CEO fault that, you know, the company is denying all of that claims or health insurance and everything. And I just looked at them, like I bit my tongue a lot because I didn't want to argue and stuff, because I didn't really have my thoughts together anyway, and I wasn't prepared to argue, mainly because I wasn't taking side. I was just making conversation like we always like I always have in the past with this person. And it's just small talks usually it's just like, hey, the weather is hot. And then, it's just like the same that I do with other people as well. It's like when I say, oh, did you see that shop just been shut down lately, like it's closed down, so there's so many shops closed down. I wasn't expecting like, a rebuttal of saying, oh yeah, but it's not the mall's fault that those shops shut down. And like I wasn't expecting a rebuttal like that, because like it wasn't part of the equations of the conversation. In my head, I'm like, I'm not trying to blame anyone here, I'm just saying, like, this is what has happened and this is what people are saying. And I think like the fact that they might just be they might I think like in the back of their mind, it might be because they're dealing with a lot of this oligarch community, that just because they're dealing with it, it makes them feel like they're part of that world. So it's natural for them to defend that world. But maybe because I am in the poor side of society, I definitely understand a lot more from the general public side of things, where your life, your health, your is being controlled just by other people, just because they have money. It's not because they are smarter than you, not because they are better than you, just because they have the money and power to do that. And suddenly your life and death is depending on whether they want to make more money this year, rather than whether they're gonna save many people's lives according to their own policies, probably. So I wasn't going into debate on that one. So I just let it go, because I wasn't prepared to do it. And I didn't really want to. I'm not a really good person to burn relationships, like bridges. I'm not good with that. I I'm probably keep a lot of relationship a lot longer than I really should have, even when they're toxic, which probably is my toxic side. It's like I give them so many chances, and I always give them like, oh, they might have a bad day, or they might this, or they might that. It's not until they're really, really bad that I'm like, okay, I gave you so many chances, man. I think this one is on you. So I'll just let it go. But that kind of gave me like an insight, and also memories, flashbacks of when I was also in their positions. And now I understand it a little bit more from an older person position, when they say things like, you should just take what you need to get out of them, and just leave a lot of things that is not beneficial for you over there as it is. And it's transactional, basically. A lot of people have become quite transactional in their work ethics, and in their even in a daily relationship type, in their communal things. And I think I bought into the lie that life is not transactional, because I was so into self-help industry and the positive toxicity. And I realized like the only person who benefits in those based on those lies are the people who are making so much money out of it. Because if we're the people that are poor, not holding, is giving a lot more than what the contract or what the transaction is supposed to be, but they the one that not giving us back, because they say, giving more is much more holier than thou, basically, then you are a good person. And maybe they have made peace with the idea that I will not be a good person. Because I just want to be rich. Anyway, that's probably way too long of a ramble based on my heat stroke headache. And I don't know what's gonna go on tomorrow. Hopefully tomorrow it's gonna be back to normal summertime. So like, I'm not complaining about the heat so much, unless it's affecting me like health wise, mainly because I understand especially in mid-July, mid-June, like the summer across the globe, like the north side of the globe, it was basically 40 degrees as well, like, and in India it was over 50 degrees. So I definitely not complaining about my 35 or 40 degrees weather in Sydney, Australia, but I'm just saying that my body's not coping well. I can't do anything about that. I can do something about my complaining, which I will try to make it in the minimum though. But yeah, that's like my whole discourse of where things are at right now when it comes to the wealth gap divide. My advice, any closing section is like, yeah, your job doesn't define you. It should not be part of your identity. You should just get in, do your job, get the money, get out, and attend to either your hobbies or your friends, your families, or your dog or your cat, your pets, your lovely pets and cats. And definitely a job is definitely not a security. Don't think of a job to be secure anymore. It's not. It's a myth now. It's no longer get a job and then you don't have to do anything anymore after that. Get a job and then always make sure that you either save or keep your options always open. Not saying that you're not committed to the job, but I'm just saying that you always have to, I don't know, what do the people do these days? Network, or keep someone in the recruitment industry around, probably, just so that you can keep a pulse on the market. And I feel like because it's too risky now just to have a job because you just have one source of income, and I know it's probably better than what I have now, as all my earnings are basically going into the oblivion. And that's that too, right? Like this year, as I'm going, I know I was going to say goodbye, but now I keep ranting. As I'm heading towards the end of the year, I feel like I definitely feel a bit different than the start of the year where I felt frustrated. I feel now I am in that state of surrendering, maybe, because the world stops making sense anymore. And there is this trend on TikTok that basically saying the lamb is looking weird, and that and it's just basically saying, like, it's not real anymore. Like reality is not real. Reality is not realitying anymore. I feel like that's what's happening right now, and feel like I'm completely detached, and like my feelings towards the world is being cut. And I don't know, things are just confusing right now. Anyway, if you're in Sydney, hopefully you stay, or in New South Wales or in Australia, I hope you stay cool and don't get a heat stroke inside indoors like me. And maybe there will be more of this because I will probably will suffer a lot more as summer goes on. Let me know. Actually, no, don't let me know. I'm just gonna do whatever I want to do. There's only like 2 weeks left of this vlog, so I am scrapping by. I am scrapping by. I am holding on like to the teether of my last energy and efforts to fulfill my own promise to myself. Anyway, I'll see you tomorrow. Bye everyone.